Metro 2035. Dmitry Glukhovsky, Chapter 17. All correct. They were still there in the rearview mirror, the radio center that they had left, the 10 surviving pylons, the excavator with its arm raised for a blow that was never struck, the fateful turning off the enthusiasts' highway onto the bypass highway, and not 3 or 4, but 6 armored trucks with overriders on their bumpers and machine guns on their roofs. A line of men without insignia and a line of propellers that had started working again in the fresh wind. A lot of things were behind him now, and somehow they had all fitted into that dusty little rectangle. It had all seemed huge, but it had turned out to be small. Arseny and his 2 sons were all that hadn't fitted in. But what about them? Artyom asked. They could at least bury them. They'll tidy up without you, said Letyaga. After you and after me, let it go. Relax. The dog's pit hadn't fitted into the mirror either. Savelli and Lyokha were sitting together on the spacious back seat. When Artyom was buying his own immunity, he'd bought theirs into the bargain. Savelli's little Japanese girl was raising dust behind them, tied to the off-roader, taken prisoner. Savelli had refused to abandon her. Suspicious characters, Savelli put in. That's the first thing I thought when I saw them on the highway. They walked here from Murom, said Artyom. They have a monastery there, beautiful, so they said, white and sky blue. They said they were from Murom, and they said they walked, Letyaga corrected him. Maybe a helicopter dropped them off 10 kilometers from here. They gave them a cover story to elaborate on and let them get on with it. Someone's always trying to get through. The bastards just keep on coming. But it was them who called me to the radio, Artyom thought out loud. When you called me, what would they do that for? I don't know, Letyaga confessed, but my orders are clear. The alarm bells went off in my head immediately, you know. Savelli shifted closer to the conversation. The moment I heard English on the radio, they started up. The Yanks haven't pegged it. Here we are thinking we pounded them until the last dog died, and they're having a little sing-song together. I think like you. What comes next? They'll never let us breathe easy, will they? All they ever dreamed about was toppling us, colonizing us. Those Rothschilds and the entire global shit-ass international. And honest to God, that's what I thought. Maybe they're the ones dragging us face down through shit in the metro. Lyokha smacked the lips of his toothless mouth. What did he mean? Was he missing home? Uh-huh, Nigmatulin snarled from the driving seat. If only they wouldn't dirty their hands with that. They'll blast us with missiles the moment they sniff us out. And what can we intercept them with? There's damn all left. Yeah, it's all clear now. As soon as you explained, everything fell into place. Savelli hissed through his teeth. It all fitted together. These jammers. There I am driving along, damn it, and I think, what is this? What's it all for? That yarn Artyom spun me. The red line, the people have been tricked and locked away underground. That's just plain crazy, right? I'm sorry, brother, of course, but where's the sense in it? I was driving along and I realized, you're a good guy, but you're talking nonsense. I just felt in my heart that it was bullshit. It just couldn't be true. Our own people treating us that way for no good reason. But when you explained it, I just knew in my heart, that's it. Bullseye. I just felt that it was too damn smooth altogether. Them leaving us alone for all these years, and us somehow surviving so cheerfully. Now it's clear what's what, eh, Artyom? Yes. They passed the orbital highway. Some vehicles going right, into the dead traffic jam, some going left, but all going to the same place, and they were going back to Moscow to live out as many days as they each had left. It was a good off-roader. Leather seats, armor plate as thick as a finger, and some kind of special instrumentation. The motor purred cozily. Nigmatulin drove determinedly, and the mummies flashed by as fast as frames in a movie like a single person. A good car, said Artyom. I didn't know we had any like this. We do now. Artyom chewed on his cheek, instead of asking Letyaga about everything else. He didn't want to do it in front of the others, and then he gave in after all. I've already seen this car, you know, on Okotny Riot Street. I know about that. I thought I'd be left lying there. But you weren't. Why? You were recognized, one of us. How could we zap one of our own? But if I hadn't been recognized, if I'd been wearing a gas mask, then you shouldn't fucking wander around with a radio. Even the jammers can't cut out the signal completely. They stifle everything coming in, but not always everything going out. So we have to work hands-on. How do you search for people? With this. Letyaga slapped the instrument panel. There's a position finder in here, a good car. Savelli squirmed. There was something on his mind that hadn't been resolved yet. Why not tell people so there wouldn't be any hitches, the way we messed things up? We have to avoid any panic, Letyaga said. And then, people have relatives, some in this place, some in that place. This is Moscow, after all. They'd start creeping off. Then we'd be exposed for sure. Not even everyone in the Order knows. Not everyone. Artyom nodded. Well, maybe I have relatives too, Savelli responded. But in a case like this, we can't plaster on the lube so those bastards can shaft us. Nigmatulin mumbled something unintelligible in his support from the driving seat. Don't be angry with the old man. Letyaga turned towards Artyom from the front seat. So he didn't tell you. I only found out myself a year ago. He was probably going to. Probably. You did everything right, brother, said Letyaga. You came away with us, so definitely. Everything will be fine. And you keep tabs on all of Moscow? Artyom asked. You track everyone's location? Yes, we do. Not you, Artyom. We do it, the Order. We keep tabs on them. We track their locations. But I went up on the surface every day, up to the 46th floor. I broadcast every day. What about that? What about it? Didn't you hear me? We heard you and we saw you. But I was blowing your cover, our cover, everyone's. Letyaga looked at Nigmatulin. Then he turned towards Artyom with his eyes squinting. Miller said not to touch you. Why? Well, you're sort of family. That's awkward. Pull up, Artyom replied. I'm feeling sick. Nigmatulin did as he'd asked. He let Artyom spill his insides out. It was all left at the roadside. The home brew vodka with crushed teeth, an entire living, talkative world, and somewhere on it, the dot of a snow-white fortress with sky-blue domes. Clearly, there was no way he could have carried all that back home into the metro with him. Now he could get some sleep. Have you picked up a dose? Letyaga asked sleepy Artyom suspiciously. It's car sickness, said Artyom. When he opened his eyes, it was Moscow already. They were driving along the embankment. Night was falling. Artyom didn't recognize the city in the window. Moscow was the same as it had been in the morning. But someone had put new eyes in his head. It was a strange feeling, strange and stupid. Everything around him had turned fake now. The abandoned buildings were stage scenery. The empty palaces were decoys. The dead bodies in the cars were mannequins. Once he used to look into the magical tube of a kaleidoscope and see a heart-wrenchingly beautiful mirage. And then something possessed him to take it to pieces, and the painted cardboard and multicolored crumbs of glass had fallen out into his hand. And how can you dream about cardboard? He tried to love Moscow again and miss it again, but he couldn't. It was a hoax. It was nothing but an empty cardboard cutout after all. And the dead people in it were only cardboard cutout people, and their grief was molded out of papier-mâché. Everything was arranged like this for an audience. Supposedly for the one underground, but really for the one across the ocean. What a discovery he'd made. A truly great one. After all, he had discovered the entire world, all the continents at once, and a useless one. He couldn't do anything with this knowledge in 3 weeks. And did he have 3 weeks anyway? The doses added up, and how much more radiation had he breathed in? Maybe it was 2, not 3. They drove along the river past the Kremlin. The Kremlin was undamaged, but it was pretending to be dead too. He remembered how the overseers at Schiller Station smashed dead people's heads with metal reinforcing rods, just to make sure so they wouldn't bury anyone alive. Don't take anything on trust. So was Miller right? So was all this worth it? Yes, they lied to people, but in order to save them, right? Was there a way to live with this, for 2 weeks at least? He'd ask Miller about that. At Borovitskaya station, they all went through decontamination. Lyoka and Savelli were taken off somewhere, with promises to treat them nicely. Letyaga led Artyom through the dark connecting passages towards Arbat to Miller. Artyom didn't talk, as if his teeth had been glued together with tar. Letyaga whistled excruciatingly. What happened back there in the Reich? How did you get out? He asked, after all, when the start of the tune came round for the 3rd time. It was bad, said Artyom. I thought I was going to croak. The letter was taken off me by Dietmar. We know. See, Artyom joked without looking at Letyaga. You all know everything. It seems like I'm the only one who knows fuck all. I'm sorry, little brother, said Letyaga. I really wanted to get you out of there. But this real Achtung situation blew up. With the Reds and the Reich. That's what I thought. Artyom nodded. I reported to the old man. He said we'd deal with it. Don't be angry with him. I'm not angry. Everything's being sorted out right now. There aren't enough men. I'll just park you here and then I'm off on different business. The Reds have been hit by famine. All the mushrooms have rotted. And now this war is the last way they have to placate the hungry people. It could spread to Hansa and everywhere else as well. They have to be restrained. And yet again, there isn't anyone but us to do it. The final decisive battle is brewing. See, the mushrooms, they've turned out to be really important, said Artyom. They have, Letyaga agreed. He whistled a bit more. What does Miller say? I was told to deliver you safe and sound and indulge your every whim, Letyaga replied. I see. I'm a little man, brother. I don't even want to peep anywhere I haven't been told to look. Everyone should get on with his own job, I reckon, and not interfere with anyone else's. Who am I to decide anything? Do you understand me? Artyom finally looked at him, carefully, in order to really understand. You're not really all that little, he told him. Artyom! The colonel drove out from behind his desk to greet him. Artyom stood there, mutely. All his prepared speeches had soured in his mouth like pig's milk, curdled. He'd spat them out before he walked into the office, but the taste of bitter whey was still there on his tongue. Listen, Miller told him. Artyom listened, and rolled his eyes round the office. A desk swamped with papers, maps on the walls. Were the jammers on them, and Moscow's lines of defense? The wall-mounted list of the boys who were killed when the Reds stormed the bunker. Where had their souls gone to? Number 10s, Ulmans, the whole crews. Maybe they were sitting in that sheet of paper, breathing alcohol fumes from the half-drunk shot glass. Totally plastered, probably, on half a shot, both platoons. A soul doesn't need that much. We'll keep this business quiet, said Miller. I'll arrange things. It's my fault. I didn't warn you. So it really isn't the Reds? Artyom asked. In the trucks at the radio center? No. But they're not our men, are they? I didn't kill our men? No, Artyom. Who are they? Whose men were they? Miller hesitated for a moment, as if asking whether the boy needed the truth. What could he do with it? Have you got a radiation overdose? He rolled a bit closer to Artyom and stopped so that he wouldn't be in his own light. Whose soldiers were they? Hansa's. They were Hansa's men. Hansa? But the wind towers. Who built the wind towers? I heard something about political prisoners that the Red Line sent banished from Rokossovsky Boulevard, from the Lubyanka, for construction work. Artyom! The colonel clicked a lighter and lit up with one hand. Would you like one? Yes. Artyom helped himself and lit up. He started breathing full and deep. It sharpened up the contrast a bit. He didn't interrupt his superior or try to help him. Artyom, I understand that it will be hard for you to accept everything on trust. Now, but think about it. Would the Red Line ever build anything for Hansa? For its own sworn enemy? No. Correct, it wouldn't. They did everything themselves. They have enough workers and equipment. And the bodies in the pit. There's a huge pit dug out there, crammed right up to the top. Then who are they? Miller nodded. He knew about the pit. And did he know about the dogs? Spies, saboteurs, potential spies, and potential saboteurs. Hansa's been doing this without us knowing, without anyone knowing. All these years? Hiding everything from us, blotting it out, deleting it, the whole planet? In order to save Moscow? But why don't they, the West, the Americans, why don't they bomb the other cities? Look, I heard them myself. Petersburg, Vladivostok, Ekaterinburg, they're all out there, babbling away, on peaceful subjects, in Russian. They're all there. The country's out there. Are we the only ones who aren't? What about the war out there? Is it still going on? Out there? What do you know about out there? You listen to the broadcasts for half an hour? It's all a radio game, Artyom. How can you tell which are our side and which are paid mercenaries, where their saboteurs are? What's really ours now? Apart from the metro, nothing. The metro is all we have left. Where is there any real live life out there? They've planted provocateurs everywhere, like spiders sitting in their webs. This is Vladivostok, come and join us. This is Petersburg, come to us. And everyone drawn into them from the villages is finished off on the spot. A bullet in the forehead. There isn't any Russia. Everything happened just as we feared it would. They blitzed us, crushed us, and occupied us. If we don't hold out here, if we let them know that we've survived, then we'll be next. We have only one way to save ourselves, Artyom. Pretend to be dead men, and build up our strength so that we can go back. But what if people simply come to us? Our people? Like that, from the villages, not saboteurs, but our people, Russians, the genuine article? There's a war on, Artyom. It's not possible to check everyone out. They're enemies. Full stop. What if they don't come from the east, but the west? All the main directions are covered. And the jammers? That's not the only station. So I wouldn't have achieved anything anyway? You wouldn't have had time, Artyom. It's a good thing Let Yaga got you out of there. If you'd wrecked just one more pylon, I wouldn't have been able to strike a deal with them. Their orders were to take no prisoners. Artyom drew in smoke, caught the unraveling words and lined them up. Were you watching me? When I climbed up to the top of the Tricolor building, the high-rise? The colonel's mouth twitched. Let Yaga had blabbed. We knew. Why didn't you shut me up? Because you're one of us, even though I said those things to you. But you, yourself, when did you find out? How? I was put in the picture some time ago. Artyom took a drag. He sat down on the floor with his back to the wall. There wasn't any chair. Now Miller in his wheelchair was actually taller than him. He ought to be taller than Artyom in any case. He used to be taller when he had legs instead of wheels. You know, Svyatoslav Konstantinovich, in our last conversation you demonstrated conclusively that I was schizo. I did that to protect you, so you wouldn't do everything that you have done. But why couldn't you simply explain? Or am I schizo after all, eh? Artyom, you tell me. Am I schizo or not? Just tell me. Listen, your story about the Dark Ones, this certainty of yours that you could have saved the world, that you were chosen by them, that mankind will perish because of you. How can I tell you, how can I say something like that simply? All that story of his about the Dark Ones, all that story of his, all of it. None of it was important, right? The way we hit them with missiles. It didn't change anything, right? We never were the last people on Earth, here in Moscow, and the Dark Ones were never our only hope. I didn't save them just because... But nothing terrible happened. The world's still living the way it was before. But if I had saved them, well, there would have been someone to show in the zoo. Whether they were angels or not would be totally fucking irrelevant. Not a miracle, just a curiosity. Even I think it's funny. Funny what a stupid wanker I am, right? Svyatoslav Konstantinovich. No. It's funny, Artyom protested. It was hard to sing, hard to pronounce the vowels, as if a goiter was getting in the way. I did try to explain to you. I told you that you were too hung up on them. But in view of your condition, I didn't have any right to break secrecy about the shield. My condition, Artyom echoed. Yes, definitely schizo. First I thought I was saving the world, then I thought I doomed it. Delusions of grandeur. You simply weren't sufficiently informed. You had to invent all the rest. But talking to you now, I'm convinced that you're reasoning perfectly soundly. It's not your fault. But whose was it? Artyom looked into the glowing ash on his cigarette as if it was gun barrel. It looked like a pocket-sized roll-up hell, always there with him. I had to invent a lot of things for myself, he agreed. If you think it was all easy for me, I don't think that. I was simply an idiot. What did I do it all for anyway? I thought I could take you, Anya, before, and you, the boys, my stepfather, up onto the surface, so we could live in a city, together, in houses, I thought. I pictured it, even in that monastery, all together, or set out, on the railway, to take a look at the country and the earth. It was a dream. If only the world was still there. That's what I thought. But everybody knew. Do you think you need to lie to people? Why not tell them? Let them choose for themselves. If they want to go, let them go. You're starting to talk like a fool again. Miller frowned. They'll leave Moscow. And then what? They'll be picked off out there, one by one. All of them. We're still together here. The metro is our fortress, a fortress besieged by the enemy. We're all part of the garrison, not just the Order, but everybody. And we're not here forever. We're building up our strength to strike, for a counterattack. Is that clear? We'll leave this place, but not to surrender. Not with a white flag. We won't run for it. We'll leave this place to take back what's ours. We have to win back our land. Is that clear or not? But right now, there isn't anyone waiting for you out there. There isn't anyone waiting for me here. That's not true. I didn't summon you here to snivel. And that's not what I got you out of there for either. What for, then? Miller trundled back to his bunker desk, pulled out a drawer, rummaged in it for a while with a frown, and took something out. There. He rolled over to Artyom himself and held out his fist. He opened it slowly, not theatrically, but as if he was struggling with himself. There was a name tag lying on his palm. Engraved on one side was, "If not we, then who?" Artyom took it. He licked his dry lips and turned it over. Artyom Dark. The first name his mother gave him and the surname he invented himself. His name tag. The same one that Miller had confiscated from him a year ago. Take it. What is this? I want you to come back, Artyom. I've thought everything over and I want you to come back into the Order. Artyom examined his surname obtusely. It was meaningless. It didn't signify anything anymore. It used to be his penitence. It was a burning cross, a reminder to him about himself. But now what was it? He wasn't to blame. That was over and done with. He ran his finger over the black and yellow inlay of the letters. Something was hammering in his ears. What for? Because I exposed Moscow's cover? I won't let them have you, Miller replied. You're one of us. Let them choke on that. Artyom finished his cigarette. He stopped at the point there that tobacco singed his fingers. Them. What do you need me for? Right now, every man counts. We have to stop the Reds at any price and sort out the fascists. It's the last chance to stop the war, Artyom. Otherwise, there won't be any more radio signals here, and not because of the jammers, but because of us. We're doing the West's work for them. They won't even get a chance to be surprised. Do you understand? I understand. Well, are you with us or not? I'd just like to patch you up a bit and you can join the ranks. And what about my men? Savili and Lyokha? What will you do with them? We'll take them on for training, since you've already cleared them for access to a state secret. Into the Order? Into the Order. As far as I understand it, the three of you took the radio center. That's a good recommendation. Was that all? Artyom ran his hand over his scalp. Sashenka had shaved it. You got too much radiation, Miller said definitively. Let's put you in hospital. Stay there for a while and we'll see what's what. And then... Svyatoslav Konstantinovich. Permission to ask a question? What was in the envelope? In the envelope. In the envelope we were supposed to deliver to the Reich. Ah, Miller frowned, trying to recall. An ultimatum. An ultimatum from the Order. A demand to halt the operation immediately and withdraw all forces. And that's all. The colonel spun round on the spot. The fuming roll-up in his teeth described a circle, deploying a smoke screen. He squeezed the words out. An ultimatum from the Order and Hansa. From both of us. Jointly, full stop. They're waiting for you, Artyom. Artyom straightened out the cord, stuck his head in the noose, lowered the name tag, and hid it under his shirt. Thanks for having confidence in me. And to himself he wondered why he hadn't been killed in the bunker. Was Letyaga to blame? If they'd stitched a red line in Artyom then, would he have been better off or worse off? Did he feel good now that he knew? What would he die of radiation sickness for now? He could have been here in Miller's office with the boys. He could have been letters on that sheet of paper, always drunk and always jolly. Our fighting days aren't over yet, the colonel promised. Only we have to get you. No need to put me anywhere. I know all about myself already. Do the boys have something on today? Something on? Letyaga told me an operation. Against the Reds. Not enough men, he said. Miller shook his head. You can't even stay on your feet, Artyom. What can you do? Go with that man there. Take a rest. There's someone out there to socialize with. I'll go with them. When is it? Why the hell? Miller tossed his butt on the floor. Why can't you just sit still on your backside? I really want to do something, Artyom said, although it should have been one last thing. Not just lie there, but finally do something meaningful. Asterisk. It looks like a room for conjugal prison visits. Would you like to go for a walk? Yes. She pushed the door and walked out first. Artyom followed. Arbat Station was like the chambers of a royal palace, like the Russia of a dream, grandiose, white and gold and endless. There was somewhere to go here, follow the perspective all the way to its vanishing point. What happened to you? Nothing. I picked up a dose of radiation, if you mean the hairstyle. I mean in general. In general. Did you know about the radio? No. Didn't he ever tell you before? No, Artyom, never. He didn't tell me anything about it until now. I see. Well then, that's it. There's nothing to add. You've got nothing to add? What else is there to say about it? I found what I was looking for, that's all. People looked round at them, at her. All those General HQ fossils and desk warriors at Arbat cracked their calcified joints, twisting their entire torsos if their crimson-creased necks couldn't turn. After all, she was beautiful, Anya. Tall, light, haughty, with a boyish hairstyle, dashingly penciled-in eyebrows, angled upwards and outwards, and all of a sudden, here she was wearing a dress too. So are you going to come back now? She said it in a flat voice, as if she was the same on the inside as on the outside, as if her face was made of china and she had a wind-up key in her back. Artyom's own back was suddenly running with sweat. There are some things you learn not to be afraid of. But he had never developed immunity to conversations like this. He strode along, counting off his silent steps to himself, and they simultaneously became the ticking meter of his awkwardness, cowardice, and misery. That's what your father assumes. He gave me my name tag back. I meant us. Well, if I accept his offer, and I have accepted it, then I won't have anywhere to go. I can't live at exhibition, can I? I'll be here, the barracks. There's some kind of operation today. They're sending me on it, and... What's that got to do with anything? Stop it. Listen, I can't see how we can start over again. I want you to come back. She spoke in the same way, calmly, firmly, quietly, with an impassive face. There was nowhere at Arbat Station for two people to talk. Better among strangers than with your own folks on the other side of the wall. The crowd jammed the signal. In a crowd, you could talk heart to heart. It didn't work out for us, Anya. Everything went wrong for you and me. It wasn't going right, so what? That's all. That's all? Have you given up? No, it's not that. So you didn't want it anyway? And you just cut and run? You used some idiotic excuse to cut and run? I'm telling you that I need you. I need you, Artyom. Do you realize what saying that costs me? Me? What it costs me to say that? We can't glue it all back together. Glue what back together? The story of you and me. Everything in it happened wrong. This thing and that thing. Everything. Too many mistakes. So you just scuttle off. Too many mistakes. I think I'll be off now. Was that it? No. Yes, it was. And I was probably supposed to think, if he leaves, then okie dokie. It looks like there's nothing to glue back together anyway. Was that it? No. What are you? I'm not going to talk about this in public. No. But you're the one who brought me out for a walk. A real strategist. Stop it. Or was it like this? I'm a proud woman. I told you that myself. And you probably decided, well then, she won't grovel if I just run away from her without saying goodbye, will she? She'll hang herself before she comes crawling to find out why I dumped her. I didn't dump you. You ran away. Anya, come on. Why are you doing this? Like some stupid woman? You're not a woman, Anya. You're a real man. You're my brother in arms. You're Letyaga with boobs. Oh, please. Tell me it's all over for us, Anya. Tell me to my face, no more whining, and explain why. Because it won't work out for us anyway, because everything was wrong. But you really are like some stupid woman. Can you be a bit more specific? What's wrong? The fact that my father was your commander, that he was against our marriage, that you had hang-ups, that you were more in love with him than with me, that he thought you were insane, that you were always comparing yourself with him, that he was a genuine hero and the savior of his homeland, that you wanted to be him first, that you couldn't simply be with me. Shut up! Why? You can't say all this out loud. Let me say it for you. Someone has to. Because I don't love you. Because I fell out of love with you. Because, yes, I don't know how to tell you that. Because you're afraid of me. No. Because you're afraid of my father. Oh, go to hell. Just fuck off, will you? That's all. People are turning to look at you. It's embarrassing. I have someone else. Ah, so that's what you found. You looked for it and found it. You should have told me. You should have said, Anya, I was simply looking in the wrong place. There wasn't anyone up on the surface, but underground someone turned up in a week. Go ahead. Pile it on. You spent the whole year training those skills of yours on me. You never believed me. You didn't believe me, and you didn't believe in me, like your daddy. He called me schizo too. He still does to this very day. You take after him. I'm like my mother. You're like your daddy. Anya stopped walking. People stumbled into them, swore, gaped at Anya's pedigree points, forgot their annoyance, and went frothing on with the current. They were very preoccupied with their underground business, as if there was nothing in the world but the metro. Let's have a drink. I'd like to get some sleep before the operation. You owe me, so shut up and let's go. He'd already realized that he had to do it, and do it before this operation, before finally doing something meaningful. He owed her more than he did anyone else. They found themselves an intellectual dive in a pedestrian passage, sank down onto the stuffed sacks, and drew the curtains. Now it was as if they'd been left alone together. How come you're here? He sent his men for me, told them to tell me that you'd given me my freedom, a fine way to separate, sending the message via my father and 2 armed cretins. I didn't want it to be like that. You're a brave man, Artyom. I respect you. I'm a shit. Okay, accept it. But what now? You've come back to your ideal daddy now, haven't you? Eh? That's it. Hurrah! Why eat my brains out? You're a real cretin after all. Accepted. A shit and a cretin. Have you never wondered why I went away to Exhibition Station with you? Never wondered what I saw in you? Back here, the entire order, the whole herd of studs, trailed after me, one hero after another, all drooling and trying to get a sniff under my tail. Including that hunter of yours, by the way. So why you? Yes, I wondered. Well, maybe I didn't want a hero. I don't want a psychopath. I don't want a husband who saws a man's head off with a knife and doesn't even blink when the blood spurts out. I don't want that. I don't want a husband like my father. Is that clear? I wanted a good, decent, normal human being. Someone like you used to be, who does everything he possibly can to avoid killing people. And I wanted him to have children like that, kind. People like that die underground. People of all kinds die underground. So do we stop having children? That's right, we stop. When were you planning to live? With me, have a life. They drank without clinking glasses. Artyom took a long swallow. His empty stomach soaked it up immediately. His blood warmed up and set the globe spinning. I can't live, Anya. I don't know how to anymore. Who then? Your father will pick someone for you, someone worthy, not a schizo. Are you a cretin? Are you listening to me at all, or just yourself? Who will my father pick for me? He washed me in the shower himself until I was 13. 13! Do you understand that? I ran away from him, to you, to have a normal life, to live, and you want to be him. Him or Hunter, I don't know which. Damn it! Do I have to hear this? Why not? Are you afraid of getting all emotional? Are you afraid you'll have to take me away? No, but then wait till you hear what happened to my mother. She died. She was ill. You were still little. She poisoned herself with bad vodka. She drank because he beat her every other day. How do you like that, huh? How's that for a hero, Daddy? Anya, go and join his army. Has my daddy forgiven you? But he adores you. Could he ever? No. Beating the heart out of my mother was enough for him. Daddy takes good care of me. Yes, he adores me. Whatever I say, that's the way things will be, just as long as I sit on his knees. Wait, why did he... When I was in the radio center, when I was just about to... When they were about to storm the place, Where were you? Then? Anya finished off her drink in one. Her eyes were red, quite unable to cry, just like Artyom's. She'd made up her eyelashes with mascara, he realized suddenly. Anya, eyelashes. I told him straight, if anything happens to my man, he has to be reminded about that from time to time. Artyom grinned. He tried to do it contemptuously, but his face didn't have the strength. Hey, another one. And for me? That's what it's for. That's why. To my mother. Anya raised her glass tumbler. To my mother, who drank because she married a hero. So you got it all wrong. I'm like her, not like him, Artyom. He reached out his own glass in his numb hand and struck glass against glass feebly and listlessly. She was from Vladivostok. When she put me to bed, she used to tell me about the beaches, about the ocean. Once she'd put me down, she reached for her hip flask. You see, I knew how to close my eyes as if I was asleep and peep through my eyelashes. How's Vladivostok getting on? Does it answer? Yes. How you doing, brother, okay? No temperature? Your cheeks are burning up. I'm fine. Are you sure you want to drag yourself back up on top again? I'm sure. Did you go to the infirmary? Yes. They painted my back with green antiseptic. Okay. When we get back from the assignment, I'll carry you there. The same off-roader was waiting in front of the library with its engine running, and behind it was a large gray truck with toothy overriders on its bumpers. Savelli and Lyoka, wearing black uniforms under their protective suits, exchanged glances. This, said Artyom. Our men are inside there, don't worry. Hansa just lent us the truck. Where would we get anything like that? True enough. They started with a squeal and set off in convoy towards New Arbat Street. Letyaga took Artyom with him in the off-roader. He kept looking round at him with some unspoken thought from the front seat. What's this assignment? Artyom asked. It's at Komsomol Station, Letyaga explained. You'll see. They hurtled along empty New Arbat Street. Artyom didn't have time to remember anything. Where had all the living beasts of Moscow disappeared to? Why had they fled? Moscow, a city of stone, stood as empty as if it was Babylon, smothered by the sands 3,000 years ago. They raced as far as the garden ring, turned where they needed to go, straight across the funny lines of prohibition on the asphalt, and drove past the massive hulks of hotels without any guests and office centers without any clerks, and then past the pointed building of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, a bald mountain for sorcerers. I wonder how foreign affairs are going now. I don't poke my nose in, said Letyaga, looking straight ahead. Everyone has his own job. But someone listens to the radio, don't they? To find out how people are doing in general, how the enemy's getting on, what he's getting up to, what cunning tricks. How? Letyaga objected. With the jammers working away. That's true. Artyom kneaded the rubber of his face. After the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, they dived into the narrow side streets and stopped at an abandoned mansion behind a tall fence, some embassy or other. A ragged scrap of the unknown country's flag was dangling there, washed white by the vicious rain. They sounded the agreed signal on the horn. The silent gates opened to let the convoy into the courtyard. Inside, figures with the badges of the Order swarmed over the vehicles, making sure their visitors hadn't picked anyone up along the way. Artyom clambered out and thought he saw a familiar pair of eyes behind glass saucers. What's this? No one explained. Doors opened, and the figures dragged green zinc boxes with stenciled inscriptions out of the mansion and into the truck, 2 at a time, 3 at a time, then more and more. Boxes of cartridges. They worked deftly and got the job done in a minute. They saluted, signed some kind of document for irrelevant bookkeeping, saw the vehicles out through the gates, and the mansion became uninhabited again. Why so many? Artyom asked Letyaga. For Komsomol Station, Letyaga repeated. What's there? The red line intersects with Hansa, said Artyom, suddenly realizing. Is that where the front line is now? Has Hansa already joined in the war? Yes, it has. What are we doing? Are our men there already? We're pitching in for Hansa, right? I mean us. The Order. That's right. Letyaga had obviously been forbidden to talk openly with Artyom. He spat the words out through his teeth, but since Artyom was guessing everything for himself, he couldn't refuse to confirm things. Our boys are there already? Are the cartridges for them? Are they holding the Reds? Yes, this is the bunker all over again, eh? Right, brother? It's us again with the Reds again. And the same thing, if we don't hold them, no one will hold them. It could all happen again, Letyaga admitted reluctantly. I'm glad we're going there. Artyom declared out loud. That's the right kind of assignment. Asterisk. And it happened again at night. The Garden Ring Road, the rusty lumps of cars in the headlights, the chasm between the buildings, plastic bags flying through the air, the oxidized moon outlining the clouds faintly. The engines growled and Artyom felt drowsy. Past Tsvetnoy Boulevard, along the ramps of the flyover, through tricky side streets and along secret trails that the dead didn't know, along jolting tram lines to the station square, to Komsomol Station. 3 stations, trains to the east from one, all the way as far as Anya's Vladivostok, trains to the north to St. Petersburg from the second, and trains to Kazan and onward into the underbelly of Russia from the third. Wherever you wanted to go, there were the tracks. They started right behind the buildings. Put a trolley on them, lay into the levers, and roll on and on for as long as your strength holds out. All the wonders of the world are waiting for you, but no, you can't go anywhere, right? What do you mean there isn't any lid, Svyatoslav Konstantinovich? There it is. There's the lid. They drove up onto the pavement and set their vehicles right up against the doors of the metro pavilions. Now move it, Letyaga ordered. This isn't our ground. They opened the doors instantly, dispersed to form a circle round the vehicles, and lowered their night vision goggles onto their foreheads. At night on enemy ground, anything could happen. They unloaded the zinc boxes, passing them along a line of men. Artyom was the last, standing by the cracked wooden doors. He took the boxes and stacked them in a pyramid. He had a strange feeling, calm. He saw himself behind the breastwork of a trench, clutching the stock of an automatic rifle in his finger and catching bullets with his forehead. It had been good in the bunker, everything clear, everything comprehensible. He really wanted to go into the bunker again. He wanted to use up these cartridges, every single one of them. Or as many as he had time for. Now he didn't need to say goodbye to Sasha, to make up with Sukhoi or Sea Hunter. He had nothing to say to all of them. He didn't have any full stops for them. Let everything break off at a comma. Now, follow me! They each took 2 zinc boxes and stepped into the half-ruined pavilion with them in the dark, as if they were carrying children in their arms. Letyaga had forbidden them to switch on their torches. They started moving down the chipped escalator, groping at the cold contours with their night vision. The only thermal glimmers blazing red on their screens came from below, the heat of human bodies trying to warm the earth from the inside. And from down there below they heard an indistinct buzzing, like the moaning of a beehive. It seemed to come from below, but also from everywhere at the same time. They couldn't look round. They were running down the slippery steps in a line, and it would be a bad idea to stumble. But from out of some ventilation openings or other, or perhaps through the thin walls, they heard hoarse howling and muffled roaring, like the wind in pipes, but in pipes welded shut, with no hope, and with every step down it got louder, and it got hotter and hotter. "What is that?" Lyoka panted as he ran. "The red line's down there. There's something going on there. But that's not where we're going." They stopped somewhere. "Now to the left." They set off without any shadows, moving along the walls, flashes of red in the blackness. The warmth flowing out through cracks in the wall meant that somewhere here there was something alive, warming itself, breathing out steam, but there wasn't anyone coming towards them. Maybe it was some kind of secret passage. Were they coming at the enemy from the rear? Was there an ambush here? Why couldn't they hear the battle? Hadn't it begun yet? Had they gotten there just ahead of the beginning? All those cartridges. With that many, you could hold the line for a month. But where were the other men from the Order waiting? Was that why they couldn't turn on their torches so they wouldn't give them away? "Now march!" Someone inserted red markers into the darkness up ahead. Little human figures. They heard voices superimposed on the racket made by the ventilation. Warmth lived and flowed along in the pipes on the ceiling, the extraction system, and in the drainage gratings under their feet. Apparently there were large rooms nearby, where stoves were lit, light shone, and people whispered to each other about something. But Artyom and the other members of the Order were being kept in the dark. "Halt!" They stopped under the grating of a brazier in the wall. Several crimson figures loomed up ahead. One, more like a bull than a man, was blazing furiously, consumed in flames, and two were blurred and indistinct, as if their blood was cold. A conversation trickled out through the brazier. The words stuck together and fused, nibbled round the edges, and the pipe echo reduced the tone of all the voices to one, tinny, so it was impossible to understand who was talking to whom, as if someone with a metal funnel in his larynx was reciting a monologue. "Are they all here? Yes, they're all here. How many? Exactly as agreed. 20,000, 400 units to be precise. I hope this will solve our problem, our joint problem. It should solve it. It always has solved it. So shall we shake on it? Thank you for your flexibility. Oh no. And of course we would like to avoid similar excesses in the future." You know perfectly well that the situation simply got out of control. It's not our fault. An initiative from below. A matter of control. Our agreements always remain in force. Will you do something to restore the balance? We have already. Well, and I'd like to talk separately about these rumors. You know, brother against brother. Malicious tongues are wagging. There could have been a leak. No, I assure you, that's not in our interest. We're sticking with our relationship. All right, then. May I take this? Yes, we'll issue instructions. Thank you, Maxim Petrovich. Thank you, Alexei Felixovich. This way! Forward march, Letyaga commanded. Towards those three. Alexei Felixovich. Felixovich. Thank you, Alexei Felixovich. Yes, sir, Alexei Felixovich. Accepted. Artyom's forearm started itching. There were already scabs there instead of tattoos. "Right, you monster moles, over here quick," someone growled out of the darkness. "Hand over that scrap metal." A hoarse voice, low and chesty. A small torch lit up. The beam started skipping about close to the ground, over the green boxes and the stenciled inscriptions, counting the zinc containers. 1, 2, dismissed. What are you standing there for? Circulate. 3, 4. That's it. You've delivered. Take a stroll. 5, 6. Artyom's turn was coming soon. His heart was pounding now after he'd recognized the other man. His head was blazing hot already, but he kept waiting for his turn to see from close up, to know for certain. 7, 8, put them over here. Next, 9, 10, that's it, now you're free. They were handing over these cartridges to someone. All 20 zinc boxes. They hadn't brought them here so that the members of the Order could hold the line. All that was required of them was to deliver 20,000 cartridges and hand them over to someone. That was the entire assignment. 11, 12. Artyom heard that. His turn was approaching. They're rabbits, docile rabbits. They're not going to run anywhere. 12, but down below here you'll croak. 13, docile rabbits. 14. He put his 2 boxes down on the floor. He groped with an uncertain hand at the pockets of his tactical assault vest. He pulled it out and missed the button. Next. What are you doing stuck here? The little torch's beam jabbed into Artyom's eyes, leaving the stenciled letters, the same way as the barrel of the revolver had jabbed into his ear. Then Artyom raised his own torch against it, long and weighty, 1,000,000 candle power, and he clicked the button. In the harsh 1,000,000 candle beam, he could see the man had shriveled a bit and turned pale and wrinkled while he was on his way back from the next world. But here he was, standing confidently, with his fat legs straddled wide, clutching the green zinc boxes presented to him with one possessive hand, and protecting himself against the light with other, shot recklessly by Artyom, and not killed at all by his snot-nosed little bullets. In a new Red Army uniform, sewn to order to fit his bullish torso, Gleb Ivanovich Svinolu.